Well, we want to get an overview of how photosynthesis works. And why is that? Well, this time of year we're harvesting all kinds of fruits and vegetables out of our garden. And when you think about it, all the food that you and I eat over the course of our lives comes from this process known as photosynthesis. Even the food that our pets eat, even if they eat meat, all that food finds its way back to photosynthesis, because this is where all the food that we eat comes from. So how does that work? We want to take a look at the details. And of course, when we look at photosynthesis, the structures that we're actually looking at are the leaves that plants have. Those are the cooking staff, as it were, of all the plants that make the food for us. Now, what you see pictured here, it kind of looks like potato chips, doesn't it? But these are diatoms that live near the surface of the ocean, and they perform a tremendous amount of photosynthesis that form the basis of the food chain for our oceans. So even in the oceans, photosynthesis is occurring all the time. Well, let's take a look at how photosynthesis actually takes sunlight and converts that into usable energy in the form of sugars that are stored in the food that you and I eat. Now, photosynthesis occurs in organisms that we group together and we call those producers, such as corn that you see growing out in the fields near where we live. And plants use photosynthesis in order to make sugars. Now it gets down to a neat little molecule, a very important molecule in the cells of leaves known as chlorophyll. And this is a green pigment that gives that green color to all the leaves that you and I see. When we drill down even further, we're going to see that in the leaves there are structures inside leaf cells known as chloroplasts. You see those pictured here. So we want to take a look at how these chloroplasts actually function. All right, let's take a look at the structure of a leaf. Now, if you were to take a leaf and you were to slice it down like a loaf of bread and take a look at one of those pieces, it would look something like what I have pictured here. At the very surface on the top of the leaf, so this will be the top of the leaf, and all the sun, of course, is coming down in this direction. There is a waxy cover known as a cuticle that's going to prevent water loss. Losing water to plants is something that they have to be very watchful over, and so there's a structure over top of the epidermis that's going to prevent water loss but allow sunlight to enter. It's a waxy kind of substance. If you notice leaves, some leaves are very shiny and they have a rather thick cuticle. Directly underneath those, or what you can see here, is the palisade mesophyll. Now, don't be overly bothered by that word palisade. All it means is that you have a series of posts that are tightly bound together in a row. And that's what these cells tend to resemble, so that's how they get their name. Halfway through the layer of the leaf is where the veins are going to appear, and of course these are going to provide water, and they're also going to bring the sugars, once they're produced, down into the rest of the plant. The bottom layer of the leaf is equally important. There are openings that you can see that are known as stoma here, and they allow for the exchange of gases. As you may already be aware, photosynthesis uses the gases right out of the air as reactants for this chemical process of photosynthesis. And these are managed by the guard cells on either side of those. Now, guard cells throughout the day, when the temperature heats up or in a condition of drought, these guard cells are going to close that stoma to prevent water loss. Now, let's take a look at an actual, we first want to look at the reactants for photosynthesis and how are they going to enter in. Well, as we noticed, we have the veins of the leaves that are right in here, and this is where water is going to come up from the roots into this mesophyll, and that's going to provide water to all the palisade cells, because that's one of the important reactants for this chemical reaction of photosynthesis. Also, through the guard cells and into the spongy mesophyll, we have the other very important reactant coming in, which is carbon dioxide. That is present in small amounts in our atmosphere. You and I are breathing out carbon dioxide as well as many other organisms. And so this is going to be the reactant. So when we look at the reactant side of the chemical reaction for photosynthesis, we're going to look at water, and there's going to be 6 of them, and there's going to be 6 carbon dioxides that are used in the making of one sugar molecule. Well, let's then go on and take a look at the products of photosynthesis. What are the products? Again, the vein plays an important role. All these palisade cells that you see run underneath the epidermis. That's where the photosynthetic reaction is, because that's where those chloroplasts are highly concentrated. As sugar is produced, that is going to diffuse into the veins. All right, so, and that is C6H12O6 is the chemical formula for glucose. And so that's going to diffuse down so the rest of the plant receives its nourishment, and in many plants that energy is going to be stored within the roots themselves. There's also another product that the cell really has a limited use for, and that is oxygen gas. So oxygen gas is going to diffuse from the palisade mesophyll into the spongy mesophyll, and then through the stoma, and then be released back into the atmosphere. Of course, you and I both know that we need that oxygen in order to live. We'll look at that in another time. And so when we look at the product side of this chemical reaction, every glucose molecule that you see is also going to be accompanied by 6 oxygen molecules that you see pictured here. Well, let's put all this together then. There are basically 2 stages that we like to look at photosynthesis in order to understand it. First, the light-dependent reactions. These are the reactions that will only take place in the presence of sunlight. So these reactions are going to only occur during the daytime hours. And they're going to take place in a particular structure in the chloroplast known as a thylakoid. Can you say thylakoid? Very well. And then water and sunlight are needed, as we mentioned previously. The chlorophyll is going to absorb that energy and then provide some energy molecules that are going to be used for the light-independent reactions. And in the process, oxygen is going to be released. So here we can see sunlight is entering into the chloroplast, and as you can see within the chloroplast there's these disc-shaped structures known as thylakoids. It kind of looks like a stack of green dimes, and light is going to penetrate their membrane. Water is going to enter into there, and in the process energy is going to be produced in the form of some energy-carrying molecules, which are ions, and ATP as well. We'll look at ATP on another occasion. The waste product, oxygen, you can see 6 of those, is produced during the light-dependent stages of photosynthesis. And then let's move on to the second set of reactions as we look at those in some detail. The light-independent reactions are actually what makes the sugar molecule. And these take place in the stroma, which are the liquidy insides of the chloroplasts that surround the thylakoids. This reaction is what is going to use the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and it's going to use the energy molecules that were produced during the light-dependent stages in order to build the sugar molecule. And so we have 6 carbon dioxide molecules here that are used to build the sugar. That's going to go into a cycle of chemical reactions known as the Calvin cycle that are going to eventually produce a 6-carbon sugar that we call glucose. Later on, the plants are going to use that to build things like starches, such as potatoes, or in the germ of wheat that we often use for making bread. It's also going to be used as a structural component in cells to form the cell walls in the form of cellulose, where many of these 6-carbon sugars are attached to each other. Now, so let's put this whole process together. And you have an equation that's summed up here. As I mentioned earlier, we have 6 carbon dioxides and 6 waters are going to result in 1 glucose molecule and 6 oxygen molecules. And so one simple diagram, we see light coming in, the water is brought in from the roots into the chloroplast here, into the thylakoid. That's going to result in energy molecules being produced by those light-dependent reactions. As a result, 6 waters are going to be given off as a waste product. And then during the light time hours and the nighttime hours, the light-independent reactions take place where carbon dioxide is used in the Calvin cycle to build 1 6-carbon sugar, which we refer to as glucose. And so all the juiciness of this apple, the sugar that's in here, and the wonderful taste of this banana, the sweet taste of that, and much of what you see here, these are going to be resulting from this process of photosynthesis. And of course, all the other plants that we use in our diet as well. Listen, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.